ladies, welcome back to Cookie Week. Today I'll be making a cookie cream tart. I actually didn't know what a cookie cream tart was. I had to look it up. It's just a cookie made of sablé dough, and it has cream sandwiched in the middle, and then there's more cream on top, and then fruits and French macarons. Usually they're in the shape of a heart or a circle or a letter or number, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I decided to make an apple tree. I don't know what it is about apple trees. I always like them. I have this weird thing about apple trees. I like to draw them. I like to look at them. Maybe it stems from something in my childhood. I don't know. Anyways, the culinary producer said that we had to have at least 12 French macarons displayed. So usually they're sort of standing on its side and just sort of plopped into the cream, but I didn't want to do that. I decided to make little mini macarons, and they would be sort of sitting on my apple tree, representing apples, if that makes sense. You'll see. Let's start off with the dough. In my food processor, I have plain flour, powdered sugar, salt, egg yolks, and butter. I've divided the dough in half, and I'm flattening it out a little before I chill it in the fridge. That way it will be a lot easier for me to roll out later. Just repeating the process with the other half of the dough. The dough I made earlier was for the top of my tree. Now I'm making my tree trunk, and it's a chocolate sablé dough. It's plain flour, cocoa, powdered sugar, salt, egg yolks, and butter. I always like to chill my dough in the shape I want to roll out later. And because this is my tree trunk, I'm going to flatten it out so it's a rectangular shape. Now I'm moving on to my French macaron. In here I have some egg whites. I'm gradually adding some caster sugar. Caster sugar is just very fine sugar. And I'm going to whisk it until it becomes stiff peaked and really glossy, which this is not, so I'm going to keep whisking. There we go. In this bowl, I just have some powdered sugar and ground almonds. I'm going to sift it over my meringue mixture in thirds and just fold in between. By the way, I mentioned caster sugar earlier. You really don't have to buy caster sugar. I just use my food processor and blitz it until it becomes really fine. This process of folding in the ground almonds and powdered sugar is probably one of the most important parts in making French macarons. They're quite finicky, and you can't underfold or overfold. It has to be a perfect consistency. What I'm looking for is if I pick up the spatula and make a little zigzag or an S, I want the figure to ease back into the batter within 3 to 5 seconds. Now I'm just prepping my piping bag. I'm twisting the end of it so when I fill it with batter, it doesn't all come out of the other end. And placing it into a tall glass or container helps free up both hands so you can easily transfer the batter. I'm using a silk pad to pipe the macarons on. It's just a silicone mat. You can use parchment paper. I still do when I run out of silk pads, but I feel like I get better results when I use these. So after I'm done piping, I'm not going to put these in the oven right away. These are going to sit around for about 20 minutes until they form a skin on the outside. When it's dry on top, the batter has nowhere to go but up, which creates the little feet on the bottom. Moving on to the filling, I wanted the macarons to taste like apples, so I'm stewing a Granny Smith because macarons are already insanely sweet. I wanted to use a tart apple. To stew these apples, I'm just adding a tiny bit of salt and a squeeze of lemon. And once they're fully cooked, I'm just going to blitz it in my food processor. I'm also adding a dash of cinnamon for extra flavor. In here I have some white chocolate and heavy cream. When I add the hot apple mixture to it, the heat from it will melt the chocolate and turn it into an apple ganache. Now that my pastry is nice and chilled, I'm going to roll it out and use my template to cut out the top of my apple tree. I need 2 of these, and then I'll do the same for the tree trunk.
This is something I do whenever I draw trees. I make a little squirrel hole in the trunk, so I'm just going to cut out a little circle, combine the plain and chocolate dough to make a Swiss roll. Just take a little slice out of it, flatten it out, and place it into the tree trunk. You can also use 3 different size cutters and alternate the rings like when you make a checkerboard cake, but I prefer the whimsical look and wanted to show you different options. Now I'm making a little basket that's going to go under my tree. Instead of doing a lattice, I'm going to make this easy and just score it with the knife. If you want to, you could also score the tree trunk to make it look like bark, but I'm actually not cutting it deep enough here. I'm just showing you what it would look like. I have other plans for my tree trunk, which I'll show you in a bit. Now I'm making a little ladder. I'm taking the leftover dough and combining the 2 colors. I'm not going to knead it together because I don't mind that it looks a bit swirly. Before I move on to the next part, I need to melt some dark chocolate and white chocolate. I have 2 reasons for doing this. First and foremost, I do not want the cookie to get soggy from the cream, which was the main reason. I'm assuming these usually sit around at events for a while and I don't know how good it would be soggy. Secondly, I wanted the tree trunk to have a cool bark-like effect, so I'm brushing on some chocolate with a pastry brush. This is the one with the scroll hole, which I think is cute too, but I just wanted to show you that there are so many different ways you can do this. I quite like the bark effect, so I'm going to cover this one up as well. Now I'm just adding a thin layer of white chocolate to the top of my tree. Nobody's going to see this part because it's all going to be covered with the cream, so it really doesn't have to be perfect. My mini macarons are baked and look adorable, if I say so myself. These have cute little feet and are perfectly round. I'm not a huge fan of food coloring, but I wanted to give it a little color to represent apples, so I'm using a bit of powder to dust the tops. Again, I don't want these to look polished and perfect. I'm going for a whimsical look. My apple ganache is ready, so I'm going to whip it into submission. I prepped my piping bag the way I always do, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill all of my macarons. Now I'm going to whip up some cream so it's really stiff and stable. Usually I don't like to over whip cream, but for this, I do. I already went ahead and made some lemon curd. If you want to see how I make lemon curd, it's in my ginger and lemon cake video. I'm just going to fold the lemon curd into the cream to give it a lemony flavor. You can see how I slightly over whipped the lemon cream. I did this so it doesn't collapse under the weight of the cookie. The chocolate is completely dry, so now I'm just going to pipe the cream on the first layer. I've coated both sides of this cookie with chocolate so the top layer doesn't get soggy underneath. I'm only going to add some lemon cream to the top of the tree and not the bottom because I really want the beautiful bark to show and represent a tree trunk. In here I have some blueberries and I'm just going to give it a dash of gold and toss it around a little bit. It gives it a really beautiful gold shimmer. I know this might sound crazy, but I actually have a theory behind the way I cut these strawberries. Usually, when French macarons are placed on a cookie cream tart, it's stuck in the cream and it gets soggy. So instead, I place them on top of the strawberry leaves so they don't touch the cream. And also, they kind of look like leaves on a tree. I'm just adding blueberries and strawberries, but you can add any fruit you want. I just like to keep things simple. Now for my ladder and my basket full of apples.
That's it for my apple tree. Thank you so much for baking with me today. Next week is bread week and I have something really delicious, so I hope you join me back for that. Thanks for watching.